Last night, while everything around you appeared calm and unchanged, something meaningful was unfolding quietly, something you could not see but may have felt in a subtle, almost unexplainable way, because your soulmate reached a point within themselves where they could no longer continue avoiding what they had been feeling for a long time. It did not begin as a dramatic moment or a sudden realization. Instead, it started in stillness, in a quiet space where their thoughts had room to surface without distraction, where the usual noise of daily life was no longer there to keep everything buried. In that stillness, their mind began to return to you, not in a random or fleeting way, but with a clarity that felt different from before. Before we dive into today's word, I want to thank our coffee partners. We are currently working toward a $120 goal to keep this ministry running and improve our quality. If this channel has been a blessing to you, please check the link in the description or comment box to support. Now, let's get into today's devotion. At first, it may have seemed like just another memory, something that would pass as quickly as it appeared. But it didn't. The thought stayed, and as it stayed, it began to deepen. One memory led to another, and soon they found themselves revisiting moments they had not thought about in a long time, conversations that once felt ordinary but now carried a sense of meaning, interactions that felt natural and effortless, moments where understanding existed without the need for explanation. These were not just memories. They were reminders of something real, something that had quietly left a lasting impression on them even when they did not fully recognize it at the time. As they continued to reflect, something began to shift. They started to see those moments differently, not as isolated experiences, but as part of something larger, something that had been building between you without them fully acknowledging it. They realized that what they had with you was not something casual or temporary. It was something that had depth, something that felt genuine in a way that was difficult to define but impossible to ignore once seen clearly. And this realization is what changed everything. Because once someone begins to understand the true value of a connection, it becomes difficult to treat it as something that can simply be left behind. They may have tried, at different times, to move forward without looking back, to focus on other things, to convince themselves that what they felt was not something that needed to be addressed. But last night, that became impossible. The clarity they experienced was too strong, too present, too consistent to ignore. It was not a passing thought, it was an understanding. And understanding brings a different kind of awareness, one that does not fade easily. They began to notice how often their mind returned to you, not just during that moment, but over time, how your presence had remained in their thoughts in ways they had not fully acknowledged before. They may have compared what they felt with you to other experiences, noticing the difference, recognizing that what they shared with you had a certain authenticity that was not easily found elsewhere. And this comparison is what made the realization even clearer. Because it showed them that what they had with you was not something ordinary. It was something meaningful, something that stood out even after time had passed. As this awareness settled in, it brought with it a sense of emotional clarity. They were no longer questioning what they felt or trying to define it in uncertain terms. They knew. And once that knowing is present, it changes how everything is experienced. They may have felt a mixture of emotions in that moment: recognition, understanding, perhaps even a sense of surprise at how clearly everything appeared now. But alongside those emotions, there was something else, a sense of inevitability. Because once someone reaches that level of clarity, it does not remain just a thought. It begins to influence their decisions, their perspective, their direction. You may not have been aware of this moment as it was happening, but something about it may have reached you in a subtle way, a feeling that something shifted, a sense that something is changing even if you cannot yet see what it is. This feeling is not random. It is connected to the realization they experienced, to the moment they stopped avoiding what they felt and started understanding it clearly. Because that moment marked the beginning of something new, something that is no longer based on uncertainty or hesitation, but on awareness. They are no longer in the same place they were before. Their perspective has changed. Their understanding has deepened. And the way they see you now is no longer something they can ignore or set aside. It is something that has become clear, something that has become important, something that is beginning to guide them toward a decision they once hesitated to make. And last night was the moment that decision began to form, not as an impulsive reaction, but as the natural result of everything they have come to understand, everything they have felt, and everything they can no longer pretend is not there. To keep this content free and consistent, I'm looking for 24 friends to gift just $5 each to help hit our monthly goal of $120. Your generosity allows me to focus on the message while you help provide the means. God bless your giving. As that quiet moment from last night continued to unfold inside them, the realization did not fade the way ordinary thoughts usually do, and this is where everything began to deepen in a way that felt more intense, more present, and far more difficult for them to ignore, because what started as reflection quickly became something emotional, something that moved beyond thinking and into feeling in a way that stayed with them even as time passed. They may have tried to return to their usual routine, to focus on other things, to continue their day as if nothing had changed, but internally, something was different. The awareness they reached could not be undone. Once they saw the connection clearly, once they understood what it truly meant to them, they could not go back to seeing it as something casual or undefined. It had become something real, something that carried weight, something that demanded attention. They began to notice that their thoughts were no longer scattered or uncertain. They were focused, consistently returning to the same understanding, the same realization that what they had with you was meaningful in a way they had not fully acknowledged before. And this focus is what made everything feel stronger. Because when a thought returns repeatedly with the same clarity, it is no longer something that can be dismissed. It becomes something that shapes how a person feels and what they begin to consider next. They may have started to feel the absence of that connection more clearly now, not in a vague or general way, but in specific moments, in situations where they noticed that something was missing, something that could not be replaced by anything else. Conversations with others may have felt different, less natural, less connected. Moments that should have felt meaningful may have seemed incomplete. And this feeling of absence is what begins to create emotional weight, because once someone becomes aware of what is missing, it becomes difficult to ignore it or accept it without questioning whether it can be changed. They may have begun to reflect more deeply on their own role in how things unfolded, asking themselves why they did not recognize the value of the connection when they had it, why they assumed there would always be time, why they allowed distance to grow without fully understanding what they were risking. These questions may not have brought immediate answers, but they brought awareness, a deeper understanding of their own choices, and a recognition that something meaningful had been left unaddressed. And this is where regret begins to form, not as something overwhelming, but as something clear, something that stays present, something that reminds them that what they lost was not insignificant. At the same time, this regret does not leave them stuck. Instead, it begins to guide them towards something else, a sense that understanding alone is not enough, that awareness without action leaves something incomplete. They may have started to think about what they can do now, not in a rushed or impulsive way, but in a thoughtful and deliberate way, considering whether it is possible to reconnect, whether it is possible to express what they now understand, whether it is too late or whether there is still a chance to bring clarity into something that was once left unresolved. These thoughts bring both uncertainty and possibility, because while they feel the importance of what they lost, they do not know how you will respond, they do not know whether your perspective has changed, they do not know whether the connection can be revisited in the same way. But even with that uncertainty, the feeling does not go away. In fact, it becomes stronger, because now it is connected to the idea of action, to the possibility of changing something that once felt final. They may begin to realize that doing nothing, staying silent, and allowing everything to remain as it is no longer feels like a comfortable option. Because now, they understand what they are leaving unresolved. And once someone understands that, it becomes difficult to accept it without trying to change it. You may begin to feel something shifting at this stage, a subtle awareness that something is building, that something is moving toward you even if it has not yet reached you directly. This feeling is not random. It is connected to the process they are going through, to the emotional shift that is no longer just internal but is beginning to move outward. Because once realization reaches this level, once someone understands both the value of what they lost and the role they played in losing it, it does not remain a quiet thought. It begins to create movement, a desire to act, a need to address what has been left unspoken. Right now, they are still in the stage of feeling and understanding, but they are no longer where they were before. Their perspective has changed. Their awareness has deepened. And the way they see you now is no longer something they can ignore or move past. It is something that is guiding their thoughts and emotions in a direction that is slowly but surely bringing them closer to making a decision that began forming last night and is continuing to take shape as they realize that what they feel is not something they can keep to themselves any longer. As this realization continues to settle deeper within them, it reaches a level where it is no longer something they can quietly carry without it affecting every part of their inner world, and this is where everything begins to feel more intense, more focused, and far more real than before, because what once existed as a thought has now become something emotional, something that stays with them throughout the day, something that follows them even when they try to shift their attention elsewhere. They may begin to notice that their mind keeps returning to you in a way that feels almost automatic, as if something inside them is guiding their thoughts back to the same understanding again and again. And each time it happens, the clarity becomes stronger. The memories are no longer distant or unclear, they are vivid, detailed, and connected to a feeling that is difficult to ignore. They may recall specific conversations where everything felt natural, where there was no need to filter their words, where understanding existed without effort. They may remember moments that seemed small at the time but now feel significant, moments where something meaningful was quietly forming between you without them fully recognizing it. And as they revisit these memories, they begin to see them differently, not as isolated experiences, but as part of a connection that had depth, something that had value beyond what they initially understood. This shift in perspective is what changes everything, because it allows them to recognize that what they had with you was not something ordinary. It was something that carried authenticity, something that felt real in a way that is not easily replaced. And once that realization becomes clear, it brings with it a deeper emotional response. They are no longer just aware of what they lost, they are feeling it. They may begin to notice how certain moments in their current life feel incomplete, how interactions with others do not carry the same sense of ease or understanding, how something feels missing in a way that cannot be easily explained. And this feeling of absence is what begins to create a stronger sense of urgency, because once someone becomes aware of what is missing, it becomes difficult to accept it without questioning whether it can be changed. They may start to reflect more seriously now, not just on the connection itself, but on their own role in how things unfolded, asking themselves why they did not recognize the importance of what they had, why they allowed distance to grow, why they chose silence when they could have chosen honesty. These questions do not bring immediate answers, but they deepen the realization that has already begun, turning it into something more personal, something that carries a sense of responsibility. And this is where regret begins to take shape in a more defined way. It is no longer just a vague feeling, it becomes something they can clearly identify, something they feel consistently, something that stays with them even when they try to focus on something else. But this regret is not just about the past, it is about the present, about what they can do now, about whether it is possible to change something that once felt final. They may begin to think more seriously about reaching out, about expressing what they now understand, about taking a step they once avoided. These thoughts may still carry uncertainty, because they do not know how you will respond, they do not know whether your perspective has changed, they do not know whether the connection can be revisited in the same way. But even with that uncertainty, the desire to act begins to grow stronger. Because now, staying silent feels like repeating the same mistake, like allowing something meaningful to remain unresolved even after understanding its value. You may begin to feel something shifting at this stage, a stronger sense that something is building, that something is moving toward you even if you cannot yet see it. This feeling is not random, it is connected to the process they are going through, to the emotional shift that is no longer just internal but is beginning to move outward. Because once someone reaches this level of realization, once regret becomes clear and meaningful, it does not remain contained for long. It begins to create movement, a pull that draws them toward action, toward expression, toward doing something that reflects what they now understand. Right now, they are still in the stage of processing and feeling, but they are no longer where they were before. Their perspective has changed completely. Their awareness has deepened. And the way they see you now is no longer something they can ignore or move past. It is something that is guiding their thoughts and emotions in a direction that is slowly but surely bringing them closer to taking a step, a decision that started forming last night and is now becoming something they can no longer hold back, something that is moving steadily toward becoming real in a way that will soon reach you. As this emotional clarity continues to grow within them, it reaches a point where it is no longer something they can simply process internally without it influencing their need to act, and this is where everything begins to shift from quiet realization into something more active, something that carries direction, something that begins to guide them toward a decision they can no longer avoid. Up until now, they have been reflecting, understanding, and slowly accepting the truth about what they feel, but there comes a moment when understanding alone is not enough, when awareness creates a kind of pressure, not overwhelming or chaotic, but steady and persistent, a feeling that something must be done, something must be expressed. And this is exactly where they are now. They are no longer just thinking about what they lost. They are beginning to feel that leaving it unresolved is no longer an option that feels right. They may begin to notice that their thoughts about you are no longer passive. They are no longer just memories that come and go. Instead, they carry intention, as if their mind is guiding them towards something in the present, something that needs to be addressed. They may begin to feel that there is something unfinished between you, something that was never fully understood or expressed at the time, something that still holds meaning now. And this feeling of something unfinished is what begins to create momentum. Because once someone realizes that something meaningful has been left incomplete, it becomes difficult to accept that it will remain that way forever. They may begin to question more actively now, not just why things happened the way they did, but what they can do now to change it. Should they reach out? Should they explain what they have come to understand? Should they take the risk of stepping back into something they once walked away from? These questions become more frequent, more focused, and more difficult to ignore. And with each time they ask themselves these questions, the idea of doing nothing begins to feel less acceptable. Because now, doing nothing feels like a decision in itself, a decision to leave something meaningful unresolved, a decision to carry understanding without ever acting on it. And this realization is what begins to shift the balance between hesitation and action. The hesitation is still there, but it is no longer as strong as it once was. It no longer has the same ability to hold them back completely. Instead, it exists alongside a growing sense of urgency, a feeling that something needs to be said, something needs to be done. They may begin to imagine what it would feel like to take that step, to reach out, to finally express what they have been thinking and feeling. They may think about how the conversation might begin, what they would say, how you might respond. These thoughts may still carry uncertainty, but they also carry something else, a sense of possibility. Because now, for the first time, they are not just thinking about what was lost, they are thinking about what might still be possible. And that shift in perspective is what brings everything closer to action. At the same time, the emotional intensity behind what they feel continues to grow. They are no longer just aware of what they lost. They are feeling the absence of it in a way that is specific, in moments where they notice something missing, something that cannot be replaced by anything else. And this feeling is what gives their thoughts urgency, because once someone feels the absence of something meaningful, it becomes difficult to accept that absence without trying to change it. You may begin to feel something shifting at this stage, a stronger sense that something is approaching, that something is moving toward you even if you cannot yet see it. This feeling is not random, it is connected to the stage they are in, to the internal movement that is now becoming external, to the decision that is slowly forming into something real. Because they are no longer in a place of passive reflection, they are in a place of active consideration. They are thinking about what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And once someone reaches that stage, action becomes inevitable. It may not happen immediately, but the direction is already clear. They are no longer moving away from the connection, they are being drawn back toward it, guided by the understanding they have gained, by the awareness that has changed their perspective, and by the realization that something meaningful should not remain unspoken. And this is where everything begins to align, where their thoughts, emotions, and intentions all start pointing toward the same outcome, a decision that began forming last night and is now becoming stronger with each passing moment, a decision that will soon move beyond thought and into action, bringing everything that has been left unsaid into the open in a way that will reach you directly. As this inner momentum continues to build, it reaches a stage where the distance between what they feel and what they are willing to do begins to close in a way that feels undeniable, and this is where everything starts to move from intention into preparation, from quiet understanding into something that is almost ready to become real. Up until now, they have been standing in a space between awareness and action, knowing what they feel but still navigating the hesitation that comes with expressing it. But now, something has shifted. The realization they experienced last night has not faded, instead, it has strengthened, becoming more defined, more certain, more present in everything they think and feel. They may begin to notice that their thoughts are no longer questioning what the connection meant. That part is clear. Instead, their thoughts are now focused on what to do about it. And this shift is important, because it marks the moment when someone moves from reflection into decision-making. They may begin to feel a steady sense of urgency, not overwhelming or rushed, but persistent, something that follows them throughout their day, something that makes it difficult to fully focus on anything else without their mind returning to the same point, that something needs to change. They may find themselves revisiting the same conclusion again and again, that staying silent no longer feels right, that leaving everything unresolved is no longer something they can accept now that they understand what they feel. And each time this thought returns, it becomes stronger, more convincing, more aligned with what they know to be true. They may begin to imagine the moment when they finally reach out, thinking about how it will happen, what they will say, how they will express something that has been building inside them for so long. These thoughts are no longer uncertain, they are intentional, as if they are preparing themselves mentally for something they already know is coming. They may consider different ways of approaching it, different ways of explaining what they have come to understand, different ways of breaking the silence in a way that feels honest and real. And with each time they go through this process, the idea of taking that step becomes more natural, less distant, more possible. At the same time, the emotional clarity they have gained continues to deepen. They are no longer confused about what they feel. They are no longer unsure about what the connection meant. Everything is clear now, and that clarity is what gives them the confidence to move toward action, even if they do not know the outcome. They may begin to feel that the longer they wait, the heavier everything becomes, as if the delay itself is adding pressure to something that is already at its limit. Because once someone knows what they need to do, waiting does not make it easier, it makes it harder. It creates a sense of something being held back, something that wants to move forward but is being paused unnecessarily. And this awareness is what begins to push them closer to action. You may begin to feel something stronger at this stage, a sense that something is about to happen, that something is moving toward you in a way that feels immediate, almost inevitable. This feeling is not random. It is connected to the stage they are in, to the internal decision that is now fully formed, to the preparation that is turning into action. Because they are no longer asking themselves if they should reach out, they are preparing for when they will. And once someone reaches that point, action is no longer a possibility, it becomes a certainty. They may reach a moment where everything aligns, where the thoughts, the emotions, and the decision all come together, and in that moment, they realize that there is nothing left to wait for. They have already understood everything they needed to understand. They have already accepted what they feel. The only thing left is to express it. And this realization is what brings everything to the edge of change, to the point where the silence that once existed can no longer remain, where what has been building inside them is about to move outward in a way that will reach you directly. And when that happens, it may feel sudden from your perspective, unexpected even, but for them, it will be the result of everything that has been building within them since that moment last night, a moment that started quietly but has now grown into something that is ready to be expressed, something that is ready to become real, something that is ready to change everything between you. Now everything reaches a point where the line between preparation and action begins to disappear, where what they have been thinking, feeling, and slowly building inside themselves can no longer remain in that space of waiting, and this is where the shift becomes undeniable, where the decision that started forming last night turns into something real, something that moves beyond intention and into action. The clarity they have gained has removed nearly all of the uncertainty that once held them back. They are no longer questioning what they feel, no longer wondering if the connection was meaningful, no longer unsure about what you meant to them. That part is complete. What remains now is a sense of direction, a feeling that everything is pointing toward a single outcome, expression. They may still feel a sense of nervousness, a natural hesitation that comes with stepping into something unknown, but that hesitation no longer has the power to stop them. It exists alongside something stronger, something more certain, a sense that what they are about to do is necessary, not optional. They may begin to notice that their thoughts are no longer scattered between different possibilities. Instead, they are focused, aligned, moving in one direction. The question is no longer whether they should act, it is when and how. And once someone reaches that point, the action becomes inevitable. They may begin to prepare themselves more deliberately now, not just imagining the moment, but planning it, deciding what they will say, how they will approach you, how they will express something that has been forming inside them for so long. They may replay different versions of the conversation in their mind, not out of confusion, but out of intention, trying to find the most honest and clear way to communicate what they now understand. They may think about how to explain the silence, how to express what changed, how to show that this is not something impulsive, but something that has been building over time. And with each time they go through this process, the step becomes more real, more immediate, more unavoidable. At the same time, they may begin to feel that waiting any longer only adds pressure to something that is already at its limit. Because once someone knows what they need to do, delaying it does not make it easier, it makes it heavier. It creates a sense of something being held back, something that wants to move forward but is being paused unnecessarily. And this awareness is what pushes them forward, what moves them closer to the moment where everything shifts. You may begin to feel something very strong at this stage, a sense that something is about to happen, that something is moving toward you in a way that feels direct and undeniable. This feeling is not random, it is connected to the stage they are in, to the moment they are approaching, to the fact that everything they have been processing internally is about to become something you will experience externally. Because they are no longer in the stage of thinking or preparing. They are in the stage of action. They may reach a moment where everything aligns, where the clarity, the emotion, and the decision all come together, and in that moment, they realize there is nothing left to wait for. The understanding is complete. The decision is made. And so, they act. Whether it is a message, a call, or some form of direct communication, they finally take the step they once avoided. And in that moment, everything changes. The silence that once existed is broken. What was once internal becomes external. What was once hidden becomes visible. For them, there is a sense of release, not because everything is resolved, but because they have finally done what they felt they needed to do. They have expressed the truth, allowed it to move beyond themselves, and taken the bold step that began forming last night. At the same time, there is vulnerability, because now the outcome is no longer in their control. They have opened the door, but what happens next depends on you. You may experience this moment as sudden, unexpected, even surprising, especially if you were not aware of everything that has been happening on their side. But for them, this has been building steadily, moment by moment, since that quiet realization began. And now that the step has been taken, everything that follows will unfold in a space that is no longer defined by silence or uncertainty, but by truth, honesty, and the connection that is now fully visible between you. Now that the moment has arrived and the step has been taken, everything begins to shift into a completely new phase, one where what was once hidden, uncertain, and quietly building inside them is now something shared, something real, something that exists between both of you rather than only within them, and this is where the true impact of their decision begins to unfold. For them, the moment they reached out, the moment they finally chose you and allowed that choice to become visible, marked the end of a long internal journey and the beginning of something they can no longer control. They are no longer holding on to unspoken feelings, no longer carrying the weight of something they kept inside. That part is over. But in its place comes something different. A quiet sense of vulnerability, a feeling that everything they have realized, everything they have come to understand, is now in your hands. They may begin to feel a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty, wondering how you will receive what they have expressed, how you will interpret their decision, whether you will understand the depth behind it or see it as something unexpected. These thoughts do not weaken their decision, but they do make them aware that what happens next is no longer something they can shape alone. They have done what they needed to do. Now, everything moves forward through your response. At the same time, their thoughts may continue to return to you, but now in a different way. It is no longer about realizing what they feel, it is about wondering what you feel. They may think about how you are experiencing this moment, how you are processing what they have said, how you are interpreting their actions after a period of silence. They may replay what they expressed, considering whether they communicated everything clearly, whether they showed the full depth of their understanding, whether they explained why this decision took time. And through all of this, there is one consistent awareness. They have chosen you, and that choice is now real, no longer something they are considering, but something they have acted on. You, on the other hand, may experience this moment as something sudden, something that feels like it appeared without warning, especially if you were not aware of everything that has been happening on their side. The message, the action, the decision they have made may feel surprising, even unexpected, because you are seeing the result without having seen the process that led to it. But what is important to understand is that this was not a sudden decision for them. It was something that developed gradually, something that formed through reflection, realization, and emotional clarity until it reached a point where it could no longer remain unexpressed. And now that it has reached you, everything changes. The connection is no longer defined by silence or uncertainty. It is now defined by truth. You may begin to feel a range of emotions as you process what has been revealed: surprise, curiosity, perhaps even a sense of emotional intensity as you begin to understand what their decision represents. But alongside those emotions, there is also something else: clarity. Because for the first time, you are no longer guessing. You are no longer trying to understand something that feels incomplete. You have been shown directly. And that clarity allows you to step back and see everything from a new perspective. You may begin to reflect on the connection as it was, on how things felt before, on how they changed over time, and on how you feel about it now. And as you reflect, you may notice that your perspective is not the same as it once was. Time, distance, and your own experiences have shaped how you see things, and that is natural. You are not the same person you were when everything first unfolded, and because of that, your understanding of the connection has evolved. This is why this moment is not just about their choice, it is about your awareness. You may begin to ask yourself important questions, not out of confusion, but out of clarity. What does this connection mean to you now? Does it align with who you are and what you want moving forward? Do you feel that there is still something here that is worth exploring now that everything is open and honest? Or do you feel that while their choice is meaningful, your own path has moved in a different direction? These questions are not meant to create doubt, they are meant to guide you toward your own truth. Because now, the next step is not determined by what they have done, it is determined by how you choose to respond. As everything continues to settle, the intensity of the moment may begin to soften, not because the situation has lost its importance, but because it has gained understanding. And understanding brings a sense of calm, a sense of stability, a sense that you can move forward without uncertainty. This entire process, from the moment they began to realize what they felt to the moment they finally chose you and expressed it, has led to this point, not just for them, but for you as well. Because it has given you something valuable: clarity. And clarity is what allows you to move forward without hesitation, without confusion, and without being influenced by what was once unknown. Whatever you choose next will come from a place of full awareness, and that is what makes this moment not just the continuation of something that once felt uncertain, but the beginning of something new, something defined by honesty, understanding, and your ability to choose what truly aligns with you now. Now everything reaches its most complete and grounded state, where what once felt uncertain, emotionally intense, and filled with unspoken meaning has transformed into something clear, something steady, and something that no longer carries confusion, and this is where the deeper purpose of everything that has happened begins to reveal itself in a way that is calm, balanced, and fully within your awareness. The moment your soulmate chose you, the moment they moved beyond hesitation and expressed what they had been holding inside, was not just about that single action, it was the result of a long internal journey that led them to a place of clarity, and now that clarity has reached you, everything shifts into a new phase where both of you are no longer guided by silence, but by truth. You are no longer in a position where you have to guess what they feel or try to understand something that once seemed incomplete. You have been shown directly, and that changes everything. Because when something is revealed with honesty, it removes the uncertainty that once surrounded it. It allows you to step back, to observe, to understand without being pulled in multiple directions by doubt or confusion. You may begin to notice that the emotional intensity you felt when their decision first reached you is beginning to settle into something more stable, something more grounded, something that allows you to think clearly rather than react impulsively. This is because clarity brings calm. It replaces the need to question with the ability to understand. And in that understanding, you begin to see everything from a new perspective. You may reflect on the connection as it was, on the moments you shared, on how things unfolded, and on how you feel about it now, not as it once existed, but as it exists in your present awareness. And as you reflect, you may notice that your perspective has evolved. Time, distance, and your own experiences have shaped how you see things, and that is natural. You are not the same person you were when everything first happened, and because of that, your understanding of the connection has grown. This is why this moment is not about simply returning to what once was. It is about deciding what feels true now. You may begin to ask yourself questions that are not driven by confusion, but by clarity. What does this connection mean to you at this stage of your life? Does it align with who you are now and what you want moving forward? Do you feel that there is still something here that deserves to be explored now that everything is open and honest? Or do you feel that while the connection was real and meaningful, it belongs to a version of the past that no longer reflects your present direction? These questions are not meant to create uncertainty, they are meant to bring you closer to your own truth. Because this moment is not just about their choice, it is about your response to that choice. And your response is what will shape everything that happens next. You may also begin to recognize the significance of what has taken place, not just as a single event, but as part of a larger process, a journey that brought both of you to a place where honesty could no longer remain hidden. The fact that they chose you now, after everything that has happened, is not just about the present, it is about the growth that led them there, the understanding they reached, the clarity they gained over time. And seeing that may bring a sense of completion to something that once felt unresolved, because it shows that what was left unspoken has now been acknowledged. As everything continues to settle, you may feel a sense of calm replacing any remaining tension, a feeling that everything is now where it needs to be, not because a specific outcome has been decided, but because the truth has been revealed. And truth brings stability. It allows you to move forward without hesitation, without doubt, without being influenced by what was once unclear. This is where you find yourself now, not in a place of confusion, but in a place of awareness, where you can see everything clearly and make decisions that align with your understanding. This entire experience, from the moment they began to realize what they felt to the moment they finally chose you and expressed it, has led to this point, not just for them, but for you as well. Because it has given you something valuable, clarity. And clarity is what allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that whatever you choose next will come from a place of full awareness, not from uncertainty or assumption. And that is what makes this moment not just the continuation of something that once felt uncertain, but the beginning of something new, something defined by honesty, understanding, and your ability to choose your path based on everything that has now been revealed. Now everything settles into its final and most complete understanding, where what once felt uncertain, emotionally intense, and filled with unspoken meaning transforms into something clear, something grounded, and something that no longer carries confusion, and this is where the true purpose of everything that has happened becomes fully visible to you in a calm and steady way. The moment your soulmate chose you was not just a single decision made in one night. It was the result of a long internal journey, a process of realization, reflection, and emotional clarity that led them to finally understand what they could no longer ignore, and now that this understanding has reached you, everything changes, not because you are being pushed in a specific direction, but because you now have the awareness to choose your own direction with clarity. You are no longer standing in a place where you have to question what they feel or wonder what their silence meant. You now understand that the silence was not empty, it was filled with hesitation, with uncertainty, with a lack of readiness to face something that carried real meaning. And now that they have moved beyond that, now that they have expressed what they feel and chosen you openly, the meaning of that silence becomes clear. It was not the absence of feeling, it was the delay of expression. And now that the expression has finally happened, everything that once felt incomplete begins to make sense. You may begin to notice that the emotional intensity surrounding this situation is no longer overwhelming. Instead, it has become something you can observe with clarity, something you can understand without being pulled into confusion or doubt. This is because clarity brings balance. It allows you to feel without losing your sense of direction, to reflect without being consumed by uncertainty. You may find yourself looking back at everything that led to this moment, not in a way that brings you back into the past, but in a way that helps you see how everything connects, how the distance, the silence, the realization, and the final decision all played a role in bringing you here. And as you reflect, you may realize that nothing was wasted. Every moment, even the ones that felt unclear or incomplete, contributed to the understanding you have now. This is what makes this stage so important. It is not about what could have been or what should have happened differently. It is about what is now visible, what is now understood, and what is now within your awareness. You are no longer reacting to something unexpected. You are responding to something you fully understand. And that difference gives you a sense of control, a sense of stability, a sense of being grounded in your own perspective. You may begin to recognize that this moment is not asking you to rush into a decision or to respond based on emotion alone. It is giving you space to understand what you feel, space to recognize what aligns with your present self, space to decide what this connection means to you now. You may realize that there is still something there, something that feels real and worth exploring now that everything is open and honest. Or you may realize that while the connection was meaningful, your path has evolved, and what once existed no longer fits into your life in the same way. Both of these realizations are valid, because what matters now is not the past, it is the truth you feel in this moment. This is where your clarity becomes your strength. Because you are no longer influenced by what was hidden. You are guided by what has been revealed. You are no longer trying to understand something incomplete. You are seeing everything as it is. And that allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that whatever you choose will come from a place of awareness rather than uncertainty. This entire journey, from the moment they began to realize what they felt to the moment they finally chose you and expressed it, has led to this point, not just for them, but for you as well. Because it has given you something lasting, understanding. And understanding is what transforms experiences into clarity, what turns uncertainty into direction, what allows you to move forward without carrying the weight of unanswered questions. Now, there is nothing left hidden. There is nothing left unsaid. There is only truth, and your response to that truth is what will shape everything that comes next. And that is what makes this moment not just the conclusion of something that once felt uncertain, but the beginning of something new, something defined by honesty, awareness, and your ability to choose your path with complete clarity, knowing exactly what has been revealed and what it means for you moving forward.